Everyone, and welcome to this very, very exciting, inspiring, challenging, I must warn us, and of course, instructive news series on Amalgamated Communications titled The Making of a Transformational Leader. My name is Toru Omodara, and I am so glad to welcome you to this new series. It's such a joy, such a pleasure, such a delight, such a privilege to have you with us. I must say, sometimes when there appears there is going to be a conflict of interest, and I'm saying this a bit jokingly, when there appears there is going to be a conflict of interest, perhaps because there is some form of relationship between a professional and someone who is providing services in one form, you will see the person give a disclaimer. So on a lighter note, I must warn you that this topic, this theme that we are commencing today is something I'm extremely passionate about. So let me put out the disclaimer there. Transformational leadership in any form, and transformational leadership is something I'm extremely passionate about. So let me put out a disclaimer there. As we begin this series today, you're going to hear me speak at some point in a very impassioned manner that you have probably never heard me speak before, no matter how many times you have listened to me on different programs over the last 2 years that we've been bringing several programs to you on Amalgamated Communications. This particularly sits at my heart, transformational leadership. So what is transformational leadership? Today we are going to be looking at what transformational leadership is, and we will subsequently look at the issue of why we need transformational leadership. Then we'll talk about how to build transformational leadership. Of course, how to build transformational leadership is the core of this program, right? But we have to first look at what transformational leadership is and why we need transformational leadership. And then we look at all the associated topics, right? That are relevant and necessary for this theme. But like I said, we will be beginning today with what is transformational leadership. Welcome again to this exciting new series on Amalgamated Communications with Toru Omodara, the making of a transformational leader. My name is Toru Omodara. Well, let's talk about what transformational leadership is. I'm going to be sharing some things that I've learned, read, seen, and then I will also, of course, be sharing my thoughts, on what transformational leadership is. One of the several definitions I read about transformational leadership as we prepared for this program, one of the descriptions of transformational leadership that I liked best is one from someone called, I think his name is Daft, D-A-F-T. Now you have to excuse the name because there is a lot of wisdom. You may have to excuse what you think of the name, let me put it that way, because there's actually a lot of wisdom. I found a lot of wisdom in what he said about transformational leadership. It's transformational leadership is the leadership that more or less reproduces change leaders. This is me summarizing the definition now. He said transformational leadership is more or less the leadership that reproduces transformational leaders. I'll read it to you exactly as I said it in a moment. So he said, transformational leaders have the competence and character to lead change in the organization's vision, strategy, and culture, as well as promote innovation in products and technologies. I'll say that again. He said, transformational leaders have the competence and character to lead change in the organization's vision, strategy, and culture, as well as promote innovation in products and technology. He added, rather than focusing on the micromanagement tools of rules and operational goals, transformational leaders focus on vision, values, and relationships to engage followers and build change leaders who in turn build change leaders. I'll repeat, rather than focusing on the management tools of rules and operational goals, transformational leaders focus on vision, values, and relationships to engage followers and build change leaders who in turn build change leaders. Wow, there's a whole lot to unpack there. Let me begin to go deep. When you talk about competence and character, those are two core themes It's one thing for you to have the competence to do something. Now, that's talking about technical competence. It's another thing for you to have the character, what we call behavioral competence in strategic human resource management, especially in competency-based recruitment. It's something for you to have the technical competence. For instance, if we are recruiting you for a role like aeronautic engineering, you want to know that you do know not just about engineering, but you also know about aeronautics, you know about aviation, you have those technical competencies. But if we are recruiting you to be an aeronautic engineer, we also want to look at your behavioral competencies. For instance, you have where important the grit, that's the resilience. For instance, do you have the team work spirit, because it's not a one person's job, and so on and so forth. So there will be those behavioral competencies that are also critical to the role, and no matter how strong you are on the technical competencies, sometimes you may not be selected for the role if you do not have the behavioral competencies. So he's saying that transformational leaders do not just have the competence, that's the technical competence, to lead change, but also the character or behavioral competencies to lead change in the organization's vision, strategy, and culture. Now, each of those three things are powerful on their own. Very, very powerful. What is vision? That's why I said I could camp on each of these things. Without a vision, you cannot even inspire followers. Let's start there. And I'm not talking about leading change in vision, strategy, and culture. I'm talking about even articulating the vision, conceptualizing the strategy, and envisioning the kind of culture that would be required to drive the implementation of the vision and strategy. Oh my God, this is a whole lot. What does it take to envision? What does it take to articulate a vision? What does it take to conceptualize a strategy? Envision or to come up with the kind of culture that will be required for an organization to be able to implement the vision. It takes transformational leadership. It takes leadership and also transformational leadership, especially when it comes to recreating these things. But before you even recreate, you have to first create. So if you are not a transformational leader, you may not be able to create a vision, and definitely you are not likely to be able to lead change in the vision. Transformational leaders have the competence, they have what it takes to envision effective jobs. This is somebody who was able to envision something that had not been done. As at the time he was, conceptualizing the vision of, iPhone, Apple, these things had not yet been done. These were people that created. Transformational leaders lead change. Transformational leaders envision. Transformational leaders do the unprecedented. Transformational leaders, let me put it in a very simple way, create templates. What about? There's been no template. There's been no pattern. It has not yet existed. It has not been done. Sometimes it has not even been thought of. But transformational leaders are courageous enough to say, you know what? This is the vision and it is doable. That's very, very powerful. It's a lot to chew on. But think about that. Transformational leaders have the competence and character to lead change in an organization's vision, according to DAFT, the strategy, and the culture. But to begin with, I'm saying before you even lead the change, leadership at the very basic is about creating a vision. Where are we going? What do we want to do? What has not yet been done that I am courageous enough as a leader to articulate? I'm courageous enough as a leader to envision. I'm courageous enough as a leader to conceptualize. This is leadership. And when it comes to transformational leadership, especially even when an organization has achieved some vision, has implemented a strategy, transformational leadership now comes in to say where there is a need to re-envision, we can do it. We must do it. We need to do it. And this is how we do it. And they don't just create a case for change. They don't just, transformational leaders to not just make a case for change. They lead the way in the re-envisioning process. And this is very important because some organizations, I don't know, you are listening to us, for some of us, we are leaders at the beginning of the process of creating a vision, drafting a strategy, trying to determine the culture that will be required for the vision you have created. For some of us, we are not at that phase. We have actually implemented some vision. We have actually executed strategies. We are already working with a subsisting culture, but there is a need to lead the change. Maybe because we have done all that we have envisioned and there's a need to re-envision, there's a need to aspire higher. Maybe because what we have envisioned is not making the kind of impact we had hoped for. And there is a need to re-envision, maybe because the culture is stifling the vision. The vision is not the challenge, strategy is not the challenge. But we look at it and say, the culture, existing culture in the organization cannot but frustrate the vision that has been created, the strategy that has been articulated, and therefore there is a critical need to re-envision. There is a need to lead change, and that's where transformational leadership comes in. Transformational leadership is required, it's critical, is a sine qua non for re-envisioning, for leading the change in the organization's vision, the strategy, as well as the culture. Well, I hope to an extent we have unpacked that definition of transformational leadership, and that's just one of the definitions of transformational leadership. I'm going to repeat that definition again. Transformational leaders have the competence and character to lead change in the organization's vision, strategy, and culture, as well as promote innovation in products and strategies. And this is according to that. And we'll sort of try to break it down so we understand what it means. Leadership, to begin with, is about articulating a vision, conceptualizing a strategy, and also saying what is the culture that we need for this vision and strategy to be implemented. And transformational leadership is many, many times about leading change in these areas. My name is Tilto Romodera, bringing you the very first edition of the Making of a Transformational Leader, and we are starting by trying to examine what exactly constitutes transformational leadership. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. So, still examining transformational leadership, the definition of transformational leadership. We're going to look at another dimension of this definition. It says, rather than focusing on the micromanagement tools of rules and operational goals, transformational leaders focus on the vision, the values, and the relationships to engage followers and build change leaders who in turn build change leaders. Again, there is a need to unpack that. So let's talk about the micromanagement tools of rules and operational goals. Sometimes you go to some organizations and then you just hear, this is the process. This is the process that has been created. Now, a process is bad? No. But sometimes those processes have become rules rather than guidelines. I'll repeat that. Sometimes those processes have become rules rather than guidelines. The word process, by its very implication, is not supposed to be a box. When you hear think outside the box, and people are being encouraged to, be creative on their jobs, you have to ask yourself as an organization whether there is transformational leadership. Because if there is no transformational leadership, it is impossible for people to think outside the box. I'm going to say that again. If there is no transformational leadership, it is impossible for people to think outside the box, because non-transformational leadership essentially boxes people. According to this definition, non-transformational leadership focuses on the micromanagement tools of rules and operational goals, rather than sharing the strategic goals that enables people to understand that there is a bandwidth. There are boundaries, right? There are processes, there are guidelines, there are principles, there are values that give people a sense of the flexibility with which they can express their creativity. In other words, when you are a non-transformational leader, you just say to people, this is the way we do it and that's it. But when you are a transformational leader, you will say to people, this is why we do it the way we do it. Then when the people want to express their creativity, they are guided by your values. Non-transformational leaders just give the rules. They don't give the reasons behind the rules. They don't give the principles behind the processes. They don't give the values guiding those operational goals. They don't share the strategies underpinning them. And so there is no flexibility for their creativity to be demonstrated, for their creativity to be stimulated. Non-transformational leaders focus on the micromanagement tools of rules and operational goals, rather than guiding people by sharing the why behind the what. This is what we do. True. but this is why. And so if you have a better what for the why, you are allowed to express yourself under a transformational leader. This is extremely important. I'm appealing to us. It's very, very important. If you're listening to me and you're a leader, it's very, very important for you to make up your mind to grow your transformational leadership competence, to set people at liberty to express the creativity that your organization needs for competitive advantage. You cannot lead people in a non-transformational manner and expect transformational results. I'm going to say that again. You cannot lead people in a non-transformational manner and expect transformational results. You cannot expect to demonstrate competitive advantage, to achieve competitive edge when you are leading people in a manner that keeps them within the box. Competitive edge means you're doing something above your competitors. It means you're doing something your competitors are not doing. And honestly, it means you are thinking as an institution, not just as an individual. Institutionally, the culture has set people at liberty to think in a manner that would give you a collective competitive edge. And that will never happen in the absence of transformational leadership, because people will remain in the box of rules. Like I said, processes are important, don't get me wrong, but it's much more important for people to understand the purpose behind the process. Extremely important for them to understand the overarching strategy, so that within the boundaries, it's still important to set boundaries, but within the boundaries of values, within the boundaries of strategies, they can express their creativity. Of course, there is a process, there should be an innovation management process. They know when to come to you to say, this is my idea. The idea will be vetted, the idea will be experimented, the idea will be piloted, it will be PASED, PHASED, and so on and so forth. There should be an innovation management process. That's a whole theme on its own. Extremely important. But for you to not allow them to express their creativity because they are boxed within the micromanagement tools or rules is to quell your own competitive advantage as an organization. This is still the making of a transformational leader with the role model when I'm with Radio Communications. This is the maiden edition, and today we are looking at the definition of transformational leadership. What exactly is it? And we will shortly be looking at why do we need transformational leadership. Thank you for doing this with us. We'll take a short break now and we'll be back shortly. So let's look at that last element of this definition, just this one definition that has been our focus for today. It says transformational leaders focus on vision, they focus on values, and they focus on relationships to engage followers and build change leaders who in turn build change leaders. I really love that part. Transformational leaders focus on building change leaders who in turn build other change leaders. What does that tell you? Transformational leaders understand the criticality of succession. I have never seen a transformational leader who is not thinking of building other leaders and who is not putting in those leaders he's building the mindset that they must in turn build other leaders. I have never seen. Every truly transformational leader is thinking beyond him or herself. Every truly transformational leader understands that the organization must outlast him or her. Every truly transformational leader realizes that his or our own success, the pinnacle of his or our own success, must be the commencement, the foundation, the starting point of the next generation. And so every truly transformational leader is always interested in the succession management process. They are always looking for other leadership pipelining is critical for them. They are always trying to identify those with leadership traits and tendencies, and they begin to pour themselves into those people early enough, and they build a culture of continuous succession, because transformational leaders realize that for an organization to be successful in an enduring manner, it must be continually transformed. I'll say that again. Transformational leaders realize that for an organization to be successful in a continuous and an enduring manner, they must continually reproduce leaders. That's why in Amogate, our byline has been building to endure. We've been existing by God's grace for over 10 years. Every time we have strategy sessions and we look at the byline, and many times we think about other options, but the vision is still about building to endure. We've never changed it in over 10 years. We've always kept it because it's important to build organizations that outlast us. It's important to build institutions that continually reproduce others and continually beat their own records of success. It's important to have that mentality, and you cannot do that by boxing people and by not releasing those you have identified to exceed your own bests. Do you understand? Extremely important that the people that you have identified, yes, transformationally, that identify those who have the capacity to be change leaders and they pour themselves into these people, yes, but you must also release them when the time comes for them to exhibit that leadership that is important to take the organization forward. Now, the process of identifying those who are capable of stepping into your shoes is a whole lot. I totally agree. It's also important not to release the reins, REINS, the reins of what you have painstakingly and sacrificially built to those who cannot take it forward. Just look at Tim Cook after Steve Jobs passed. Has Apple diminished? No, because Steve Jobs was conscious as a transformational leader about the need to identify someone who could take it forward. Extremely important. So I'm not undermining that at all. I'm not, downplaying the criticality of that selection process. It's one of the things we're going to look at. How do you identify those who can carry forward the transformational leadership culture? We'll be discussing that later on in this series. But to begin with, it is important, it is critical, it's non-negotiable to realize that you must have a succession process, a succession pattern. That pattern of, finding first, then building change leaders, and putting in them ab initio the mindset that they also must in turn build other change leaders. Now, there's one last element of this definition I want to look at, and then I think we'll wrap it up for today. It says transformational leaders focus on vision, values, and relationships to engage followers. Transformational leaders focus on vision, values, and relationships to engage followers. There's something we say a lot in Amogate. It's part of our value system. We say the relationship before the task. Of course, after the relationship must be the task, because that's the balance. You don't build the relationship and fail to and fail to achieve the task. But the first thing is the relationship before the task. It's important to build relationships. It's important that the people know that you care. A transformational leader is a compassionate. A transformational leader is an empathetic leader. A transformational leader cares about the people. You know that old saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care? It is as true as it is old. It may sound very basic, but it is basically true and fundamentally accurate. People will never be sold out to a non-transformational leader who does not care, who is not compassionate, who does not demonstrate empathy, and who is not interested in relationships. It is very, very, very important. You need relationships to engage followers, and then turn those followers into leaders who will build other leaders. It's very important that you invest in relationships. Transformational leaders are courageous. They are courageous enough to define standards. They are courageous enough to enforce that principles must be followed, but they are also compassionate. The people connect to them. As a matter of fact, there is something called the set theory. That's a social exchange theory. Some research has established that this social exchange theory is very critical to the building of transformational leadership. And set theory basically talks about when people feel value, when people come to a workplace and they feel that there's an exchange of value, that the leadership cares about them, then the people feel obliged to in turn care about the leadership, care about the organization's vision, and give their own best to the organization. We need that social exchange in our workplace. It is very, very, very important. You must care. The relationships are very, very important. If people do not feel that, they will not return it to you. Have you ever heard that the saying that some people come to work and do just enough because the organization also just invests just enough in them. That's the exchange theory at work. If the organization invests just enough in people, guess what? The people will also give just enough back to the organization. And an environment of just enough cannot produce more than enough. If you want that competitive edge, if you want to excel above your competitors, if you want to be a pace setter in the industry, then you must create an environment of more than enough based on that social exchange theory. You cannot give just enough and expect more than enough. There is no way around it. You have to invest in relationships. A transformational leader understands the essence and the power of relationships. You must put the relationship before it has. Of course, there's a balance to this. You do your best with recruitment. It's very, very critical. You identify those that are worth, you do your best to identify those that are worth being invested in to begin with, right? But having done that, you don't hold back, you invest. And that's why I think we're going to go deep into what is it that constitutes a transformational leader? What are the attributes of a transformational leader? As we go deep into this, you're going to find out that one of the things about the transformational leader is that a transformational leader inspires trust. People trust the transformational leader. And there are certain things that make people trust the transformational leader. One of the things that make people trust the transformational leader is the fact that they believe that a transformational leader will grow them, a transformational leader will develop their skills, and a transformational leader will give them the platform to advance in their career. I'll say that again. One of the reasons why people trust the transformational leader is because they believe that a transformational leader will grow them, a transformational leader will develop their skills, and a transformational leader will give them the platform to advance in their career. And because remember the principle of social exchange, they will give back what they get. Is a principle of reciprocity. Because they trust that transformational leader, and the transformational leader is worthy of that trust because he or she truly does that, they also begin to give back to the transformational leader. A transformational leader enhances their sense of self-worth. They are confident that if they work hard, if they give their best, if they demonstrate commitment and they make meaningful contributions, they will be recognized and rewarded based on this. And because of that, they are encouraged to give their best. We are back to the social exchange theory because the attitude of that one, they are confident that if they work hard, if they do their best, if they demonstrate commitment, if they make meaningful contributions, they will be recognized and rewarded accordingly. And because a transformational leader has integrity, is one of the attributes of a transformational leader. In other words, he or she is worthy of that trust. He or she will actually live up to the confidence that the people have in him or her, and the people will continue to, exchange that commitment, that contribution. As a transformational leader invests in their growth, they also will invest back in the organization. They will invest back in the institution, and guess what? The institution is growing. The organization is thriving. I really, really wish with all my heart that we will hear and we will imbibe this principles of transformational leadership, because organizational growth, true, genuine, enduring organizational growth is strongly tied to transformational leadership. I have never seen an organization grow and endure decades for centuries, sometimes over 100 years, without transformational leadership. In the absence of transformational leadership, we need transformational leaders, and they don't just happen. Transformational leaders must be built. Transformational leaders must be intentionally developed. Transformational leaders also must raise other transformational leaders who also must know ab initio that it is their responsibility to subsequently identify and in turn build other transformational leaders. This is very critical. This is at the core of what we do in Amogate. This is at the core of who we are at Amogate. There is nothing we have said here today, believe me, that by God's grace we have not demonstrated, we have not practiced, we have not lived consistently for over a decade. This is who we are. This is what we do. We believe in the social exchange. We invest in people, we give them a platform to grow, we do our best to recognize them, to appreciate them, to reward them accordingly. We also know that they must build other leaders, because we build to endure and we ourselves intend to endure by the grace of God. Oh my God. Well, this is where we are probably going to have to draw a curtain on today's edition of the program. This has been a very, for us, interesting, insightful, informative maiden edition of the Making of a Transformational Leader. There is so much more down the line. We encourage you to please share. Please, this is one program we are going to say share with others. Don't keep this to yourself. There's so much to learn here. We are grateful for the opportunity to bring this with you, to bring this to you. Don't keep this to yourself. Share, like, let people know about this, and we trust God for grace to continue to share these principles on the Making of a Transformational Leader as the weeks go by. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for doing this with us. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on LinkedIn. My name is Tolu Modera. This is Amogi Radio Communications, and this has been the maiden edition of the Making of a Transformational Leader. We look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to receiving your feedback. We look forward to hearing your comments, even the things you don't agree with. We look forward to receiving all of these things as well as your questions, and we will be back same time, same station next week as we continue on the Making of a Transformation. Until then, please try to imbibe these principles, try to share these principles, try to reflect on these principles, and try to adapt your processes, your if necessary, your strategies, and re-examine your values to ensure that you are truly building an organizational culture that values and demonstrates transformational leadership. Thank you so much, and we look forward to having you same time, same station next week. Until then, be good and take care of yourselves. Bye.